probably won't draft a quarterback this year because he's not going to be bad enough record-wise, barring if they trade up. But if he's in that position again to have a top 5 pick or maybe trade up and be in a top 5 pick, that he could evaluate a proper quarterback.
You're certainly concerned. I'll say this: Darnold wasn't him; that was Mike McCagnon. So this was his first, big move, swing and miss. He got it wrong with Zach Wilson. He wouldn't be the first general manager to miss on a quarterback and be able to recover from it. And you brought up the rest of the roster. This is a playoff roster. If they had competent quarterback play, I think they're a 10, 11-win team. Let's say if Mike White doesn't go down, I think this team is actually in the playoffs. That's how confident I am.
Did they win last night if Mike White's playing?
They either win last night or they win the Lions game. And they win at least one of the Patriot games, which were utter disasters by Zach Wilson.
So, no, I can't disagree with that.
So that's 10 wins right there. So they're not that far away. The thing with Douglas that he has to be able to now do is admit you made the mistake, just like Howie Roseman, his idol in Philly, did with Carson Wentz, just like Les Snead did with Jared Goff in L.A. Admit you made the mistake. The rest of the team's ready to win, and find that veteran quarterback, whether it's Jimmy G, Derek Carr, Aaron Rodgers, whatever name you want to throw out there. Find that guy and figure out the quarterback spot, unless you think it's Mike White. But I have a hard time believing, Zach, that the Jets are going to go into a do-or-die year with a GM in his 5th year, a head coach in his 3rd year, and they're just going to name Mike White the starter and say, you're the guy. I think it's Mike White back if the contract's right with a veteran brought in and a true competition, or if it's Garoppolo, he's going to win the job, and he's always hurt, so you need a good backup.
All right, who's your official prediction? 2023, week 1 next year. Jake Asman, let's say it's a home game, is at the game at that dump of a stadium, MetLife Stadium. It has no personality. It's one of the worst stadiums in the league.
It's a giant AC unit. They built the world's giant AC unit for a team for a stadium that has 2 NFL teams in the New York area that share it.
The only stadium that is worse is FedEx Field. Other than FedEx Field, MetLife Stadium is just an absolute dump. But when you're at that dump of a stadium, who's starting for the Jets next year, week 1?
I will say Jimmy Garoppolo for this reason.
I agree.
He is the only one that we can guarantee will be available. Derek Carr, you got to trade for. Are we convinced Josh McDaniels and the Raiders are going to blow it up a year after they brought in Devontae Adams?
I think they'll try for Brady or Rodgers, and if they don't get either, then they'll go back with him.
So there's a chance that Carr is back there, right? The only guarantee we can make is that Jimmy G is a free agent. He can't be franchised, and we know the Niners have Purdy. They have Trey Lance. Maybe they want to try and bring in Tom Brady or Aaron Rodgers. It seems like Jimmy Garoppolo is the guy that you know is available. He knows the system. He knows Robert Saleh. He knows Mike LaFleur, the offensive coordinator. It seems like it's the obvious plug and play. You bring him in. You got your competent quarterback. Now it's playoffs or bust.
Here's the other question, too. If we get a little bit crazy here when we talk about the Jets quarterback, we hear the talks about maybe Brady. Brady's not coming to the Jets. Rodgers, I think he's staying in Green Bay for at least one more season, especially with how the contract is. What about Lamar? You as a Jet fan, have you started to envision or have gone to the fantasy world where Lamar is maybe done with the Ravens and they could still franchise tag him, we know, up to 2 times, and maybe they find a way to trade and go all in for Lamar this offseason?
I can't even fathom it because the Ravens are not stupid. And that's what it ultimately comes down to. Why wouldn't they pay this guy? And if they don't pay him, you're talking about using the franchise tag on him maybe twice. Like, look what happened with Kirk Cousins years ago. Look what happened with Dak a couple years ago with the Cowboys. They'd be silly to not pay him. If he's somehow available in a trade, you obviously make the call and you try and see if you can make it happen. I'm not banking on that, Zach. So I think it's way more realistic that it's Carr, maybe it's Gardner Minshew, maybe the Lions want to take a quarterback with the Rams pick and Jared Goff could be available. I just don't find Lamar to be very realistic. I find a hard time to think Aaron Rodgers is that realistic, given his contract and how difficult it'd be from a dead cap standpoint to move him in Green Bay. Honestly, you might laugh, and you brought up Brady. Why,
stop it.
Why wouldn't he at least consider the Jets if he considered the Miami Dolphins?
Because he hates the Jets.
But why does he hate them? He has no relationship with them other than he would always beat them.
No, he hates the Jets.
But who does he hate on the Jets? Rex Ryan? He hasn't been the coach in 8 years.
The whole organization.
For
he
what?
Just hates the organization.
For what? He went to
Brady and Belichick. They hate the Jets. Yeah. They always love beating up on the Jets. Brady makes fun of the Jets still even to this day.
So wouldn't it be great if he went there and then stuck it to Belichick, who he doesn't like, and beats him now twice?
That's a little bit overblown. They've made nice after Brady found a way to beat Belichick.
Hear me out. I don't think it's going to happen. But I don't think it's like no one had Brady going to the Bucs.
Are you ready to win a Super Bowl now with Brady?
Yes.
That's the question.
If you get like still a very good Tom Brady, of course you have Zach, this is a team that has the offensive and defensive rookie of the year on it, and they're going to miss the playoffs. Quentin Williams is a first-team All-Pro. DJ Reed is a Pro Bowler. They have
Garrett Wilson's a stud.
Breece Hall would have won rookie of the year if he didn't get hurt. So you bring him back and AVT. The Jets remind me a lot of the Bucs in 2020 and the Rams last year. They are a quarterback away from being able to take the next step. They are an elite quarterback away from being a legit championship contender.
The only thing, when you look inside that division, you have the Bills, who are dominant. You have the Dolphins, who are starting to get in the right direction. We'll see if they make the playoffs. I think they will. Patriots are not good, but as long as Belichick's there, they're always like this year with the bottom 5 roster, be able to win 7-8 games. I wonder if Brady looks at that division and says, yeah, I could go elsewhere. Now, the NFC West isn't as strong. If the 49ers want him, he will go to the 49ers. Maybe the AFC South. You look at the AFC South with Tennessee. I know the Jaguars right now are looking pretty damn good. I think they're going to win that division, but him and Vrabel, very close, and they're going to need more weapons there. But, when you bring in Brady, a lot of people are going to want to join.
Excellent point. The only thing I would say is we all said the AFC West is the greatest division we have ever seen. And then look what happens. Yeah. So the NFL is so year to year. There's so much inconsistency.
But the AFC East is proven with the Bills. Everyone else who knows.
For sure. But the idea that year to year a division can't flip, we see it all the time. Now, we're accustomed to the New England always winning the AFC East when Brady and Belichick were there for 20 years. I feel like the NFL is a lot different now. So, look, I don't think it's going to happen, but I don't think it's the craziest idea in the world that he would at least consider the idea of going there.
And part of me just wants to puke just the thought of Tom Brady wearing Jets green. I just can't envision it. I think I would maybe retire if that ends up happening. Not seriously retire because I need to still make a living and still pay bills and things like that.
Hey, look at you. You got your own show here, a nice cushy studio. You can't give that away.
It's nice. Don't get me wrong. But out of 100%, Brady next year to the Jets, where do you put that number?
5%. But at least it's a conversation.
And you would want that as a Jet fan?
I want to win, Zach. All right? I want to win. I do not care how they win, who the quarterback is. Just win. I had people calling my YouTube postgame show last night. Be like, well, if they brought in Brady or Rodgers, it'd be all about them winning if the Jets won a Super Bowl with them.
Who cares? If you win, who cares?
You think a Tampa Bay Buccaneers fan cares that it was all about Brady winning after he left the Pats? Who cares? I want to win. All I know is losing football. I just want to see this team win. That's what makes this year so frustrating because it's not the same old Jets, the same old quarterback, but you have a good team that came up short because of the ineptitude of one guy on the roster.
Brandon Tierney, who does local radio, used to do national radio here, now does local radio on The Fan. He suggested today that they have to call Sean Payton and see if they could get Sean here. Now, he says he likes Saleh, but if you could get Sean, people are hoping Saleh turns out to be a good coach. He's been solid this year. They've taken a big step this year. Many people didn't think they would. But do you think the Jets make that phone call this offseason for Sean?
No, and I'll tell you why. Robert Saleh is not at fault for Zach Wilson being god-awful. I think it was up to him. Mike White would be playing right now, and it's unfortunate.
Do you like LaFleur as an offensive coordinator?
I don't despise him like some Jet fans do.
Because a lot of Jet fans before the year was like, LaFleur's this greatest innovative offensive mind. He's going to be wonderful. And now everyone's killing the guy when the quarterback's just been proven.
I mean, it's no secret. Anytime a quarterback not named Zach Wilson runs this offense, they move the ball. When let me tell you how bad it was last night, Zach. At this game, Chris Strebler made a pass to C.J. Uzomah that should have been a walk-in touchdown. Yeah. He short-armed it. Uzomah had to come back for the ball, so it's a big completion, not a touchdown, and they gave him a standing ovation. It was a horrific pass that you could have made for a touchdown. C.J. you could have made this pass. And that's the bar that the quarterback play was at. They gave him a standing ovation because of how inept Zach Wilson was. So I don't care who the quarterback is. They have to just bring someone in that is competent. And I just don't put it on Saleh. I don't put it on LaFleur. Are they responsible for some of it? Yes. But ultimately, in Zach Wilson's 4 losses this year, guess the amount of touchdowns the Jets defense has allowed in the 4 games they've lost.
Well, I know up against the Patriots, that game, and they lost. In the 4 that they lost.
He's 5-4 as a starter. In the 4 games they lost. I'm
going to say 3.
3. Think about it. That's not even a touchdown
a game.
Number? That's the number. Oh, wow. 3. Not even a touchdown per game in their losses. So it is tough to blame anyone on this team besides the 2nd overall pick in the draft who has regressed. Last year, worst completion percentage, worst passer rating in the NFL. This year, worst completion percentage, worst passer rating in the NFL. And I like Zach personally. He seems like a nice kid. He's just not the guy, and they got to find a real quarterback if they want to get anywhere.
Marco and I were talking about this before the start of the show, where you go back to that draft class, and everyone knew it was Lawrence, Trevor Lawrence. You were tanking for Trevor Lawrence and all that. So Trevor Lawrence goes 1. Everyone wasn't surprised by it. But when you go back to that draft process, how quickly people just anointed Zach Wilson, who I watched play at BYU. We had Kalani Sitake on. We had Zach on. I remember watching him stop and fire a dart 30 yards down the field and hit Dax Milne fading right out of bounds. So I remember watching him play in college. Now, I can't tell you I watch each and every game of Zach Wilson, but I watched some of him. But it was wild with what we saw from Mac Jones, what you saw from Justin Fields. Then, obviously, not a lot of people watched Trey Lance. How just quickly people said it's Zach Wilson's a second overall pick, and you were doing shows then, and you still are now. We were sitting there for a better part of like a month or two debating who was going to be the third overall pick because it was Lawrence and Wilson, and there was just not even a thought of anyone other than Zach Wilson being that second overall.
And you know what's amazing? If other teams were in the same spot as the Jets, they would have done the same thing. The Niners tried to come up to number 2 to take, reportedly, Zach Wilson. They couldn't, so they went up to number 3 with the Dolphins instead, and they ended up taking Trey Lance. So, look, it's a terrible look for Joe Douglas, as we talked about at the beginning of this segment, but ultimately, he would not be the first GM to overcome missing on a quarterback. Howie Roseman missed on Wentz. Here's Jalen Hurts. Les Snead missed on Goff. Here's ultimately Matt Stafford. So it's on Joe Douglas this offseason to rectify that mistake.
And you don't anticipate this offseason that they will try to move up in the draft to go get a quarterback or along those roads, because they're not going to have a worse enough draft pick to be picking like early in the top 10. And who even knows how good these quarterbacks are going to be, because outside of Bryce Young, I don't really love anyone. Like, I like C.J. Stroud. I don't love C.J. Stroud. Who knows what the case is going to be with Anthony Richardson. Hendon Hooker is going to fall out of the first round. Will Levis, like whoever that guy is, you would expect the move this year to be via a trade or via free agency.
Has to. This team is too good. This team is ready to win. When does the Jet fan get to win? They had the longest playoff drought in the NFL.
When you went to those back-to-back AFC championships.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, that's 12 years ago, Zach.
Yeah,
and
it's a long time.
As awesome as they were, I want to see this team win, and they have the roster to do it. They don't have the quarterback.
Real quickly before we take a break, this year, because you're as loyal of a Jets fan as there is, and one of my best friends is a Jet fan, and when they were, I think it was 6-3, he was buzzing. He was so locked in. Playoffs, they're going to make it, they're going to make it, they're going to make it. This year, you guys have taken a step in the right direction. But the way that it's happened with how good of a record you guys had, where now it's obviously trending that you're not going to make the playoffs, how do you look back at this season, assuming the Jets don't find the way to somehow get in the postseason?
It's painful. And the only positive, and I hate even using the word positive.
You call it a disaster?
No, I'm not ready to go there. The only positive, and once again, using the word positive is disgusting to describe what I'm about to say. The only positive is you have an answer on Zach Wilson. It's not the answer we wanted in August, fair. But at least you know. You have a really good team. Find the quarterback. Find the Jimmy G, Derek Carr. I don't care who it is. Find someone that could take this team from missing the playoffs because you have bad quarterback play like the Bucs in 2019 before they got Brady, and then find the guy that can get you over the top.
But what does Jimmy G, and I think it's going to be Jimmy G, week 1. But what is Jimmy G or Derek Carr? Yes, it's more competent quarterback play than what you have now. But big picture in that 2 to 3 year window, because who knows how much longer those guys last. What do you think those guys could do for your football team if it's a Carr or a Jimmy G?
Look, make the postseason, and then you get in, you have a chance.
But you don't think you're winning a Super Bowl when they get Derek Carr or Jimmy G?
Not necessarily, but doesn't Derek Carr kind of remind you a lot of Matt Stafford? In Detroit, Matt Stafford would get killed because the record wasn't good, and they would blame him. Ultimately, when he got to a good team, he won. I think Derek Carr is a similar type of player.
My concern about Derek Carr is if he could handle New York.
Because he cried at the press conference in Vegas?
Not only that, but I think he is a good leader. Don't get me wrong. We saw his leadership last year in just circumstances no one could even imagine. But I feel like there's a lot of excuses, a lot of woe is me from Derek Carr, like, oh, this is the year to put up or shut up. I feel like I've been hearing that for 4 years from Derek Carr. Him in New York concerns me a little bit. Hey, it's a massive upgrade. I just don't know if he can handle New York.
How many games would the Jets win this year with this team if they had Derek Carr?
If they had Derek Carr, I think they'd win 2 to 3 more games.
10, 11 wins? I mean, and that's where we're starting from. So, look, you might ultimately be right. I just want to see this team in the playoffs.
Would you rather have Carr or Jimmy G?
I think I would rather have Derek Carr because he's more durable.
Outside?
He's more durable. He's more durable. Jimmy Garoppolo is a nice player. He's always hurt.
Good year hurt. You're right.
He's always hurt. He's never healthy.
And when my team, and I know we got to take a break, when my team was looking for a quarterback, before they drafted Mac Jones, who they got to put him in position to succeed before we could figure out if he's the guy or not. But I said I did not want Jimmy G back. I know Jimmy G's good, but I don't look at Jimmy G as great. I don't look at Jimmy G as a franchise quarterback.